No one expected Melania Trump to lose consciousness on live television after Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett revealed the confidential document she had worked so hard to keep hidden. The tension was already high long before the broadcast began. The panel was scheduled for 6 p.m., and by 5:45 p.m., every seat had been filled. At the semicircular table, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat on the right, calm and composed in her navy blue blazer. Across from her was Melania Trump in a crisp white dress, her expression unreadable. The host, Tristan Cliff, an experienced broadcaster, reviewed his notes, cleared his throat, and signaled for silence. 20 seconds, a producer called out. What made this broadcast different was the growing anticipation that had been circulating for weeks. There were whispers and hints suggesting something significant was about to happen. Crockett had not revealed any details beforehand, but her reserved tone suggested she was preparing for an important disclosure. 10 seconds. Phones were raised throughout the audience, filled with political enthusiasts and journalists. The energy felt charged. Something was coming. The studio lights brightened. Good evening, and welcome to Stateline Live, Tristan began. Tonight, we have two notable voices discussing ethics and political accountability. He turned to Melania. First Lady Melania Trump, thank you for joining us. Melania nodded and replied evenly, thank you for having me. Then Tristan addressed the Congresswoman. And Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, thank you for being here. Jasmine looked directly at the camera. It's necessary, she said. Let's talk about trust. Public trust in our leaders. What harms it, and what restores it? Melania spoke first, commenting on media distortion and the importance of Americans forming their own opinions. Her response was polished but effective. Then Crockett followed. People are tired of performances. They want facts, and they want proof. Melania blinked, the camera catching the moment. Tristan shifted slightly. Congresswoman, are you suggesting someone here has crafted a false image? I'm saying, Jasmine responded, that when power becomes a tool, image turns into currency. And some have been spending it for years while concealing who they truly are. The room went silent, the audience completely focused. Melania straightened in her seat. If that's directed at me, I hope you're prepared to support it. Jasmine leaned back, still in control. Don't worry. I am. The camera widened to a full shot. 3 people, 1 table, 2 conflicting worlds. Let's stay constructive, Tristan urged with a forced smile. Melania, do you believe public figures should disclose connections that could influence national perception? Melania paused, eyes narrowing. I believe privacy is a basic right, especially when you're constantly watched and judged. Jasmine tilted her head. Privacy matters, but not when it compromises public trust. Melania turned directly to her. You're implying something without saying it. Why not just be clear? Oh, I'm being clear, Jasmine said calmly. I'm giving you the chance to speak for yourself before I have to do it for you. A soft gasp rippled through the room, a quiet sound that felt louder than any shout. Melania looked toward an off-camera producer, a flash of uncertainty crossing her face. All right, Tristan said carefully, let's go step by step. Congresswoman Crockett, what issue are you referring to? Jasmine leaned forward, focused. People deserve to know when someone influencing public policy hasn't been honest about their personal and political alliances. Melania's lips tightened. You're crossing a dangerous line. I'm following the truth, Jasmine replied. And the truth comes with timestamps. Tristan attempted to shift the conversation. With social media, controlling narratives is harder than ever. But the room's attention stayed locked on the escalating tension between the two women. Melania placed her hands flat on the table. This platform was meant for discussing ideas. Now it's becoming personal. And that says a lot about your intentions. Jasmine responded immediately. It is personal, but not for me. It's personal for the people who were misled, who believed in an image that wasn't real. The atmosphere chilled. Tristan glanced at the teleprompter, hoping for direction, but nothing on the script addressed what was happening. Especially not when Jasmine reached into her folder. Should I start with the March 17th trip to Zurich, she asked, or the April 12th overnight in Marbella? Melania didn't answer. The audience stayed completely still. Jasmine continued, Both appear in international customs records. Both involve a private jet linked to a shell company associated with someone close to you. And neither trip was listed on any public calendar. That's false, Melania said, though her voice wavered. I have the documents, Melania. The ones you assumed would stay hidden. For the first time, Melania looked away. Not at Jasmine, but toward the control room. A producer whispered something off camera. Yet no one cut to commercial. Melania tried to recover. This is a smear attempt, she said. Coming from someone desperate for attention. Tristan attempted to intervene again, but Jasmine held up her hand. Let me finish. She removed the first sheet from her folder, a page marked with faded yellow highlights. This is a copy of the Swiss Customs flight log. She said, March 17th, Zurich International Airport, Gulfstream G650. The passenger list includes initials matching your legal name. Melania'S jaw tightened. You're assuming. Initials don't confirm identity. That's why I also have hotel security footage. Jasmine tapped the folder, showing a statement from a front desk employee who remembered the tip. Euro 3,000 in cash, delivered in an envelope. Melania stared. Expression fixed. You violated my rights. Public accountability doesn't end where private misconduct begins, Jasmine responded. Congresswoman, why now? Why bring this up tonight? Tristan asked. Because there's been a cost, Jasmine answered, her tone lowering. A cost paid by every young girl told to stay quiet when those in power behave improperly. I held this information for 6 months waiting for someone else to speak, but no one did. The room was silent. Jasmine lifted another page. April 12th. Marbella. Same aircraft. Different companion. Same secrecy. No press. No record. Melania'S voice rose. Do you understand what you're doing? You're dragging a family through speculation for attention. If it's speculation, then sue me, Jasmine replied. Your concern isn't what I'm saying. It's that the public may believe it. And they already were. Across the country, screens lit up, messages appeared, group chats filled with reactions. People expecting routine political commentary were now witnessing something far different. Congresswoman Crockett, Tristan asked quietly. Are you claiming the First Lady engaged in multiple undisclosed affairs while her husband was in office? No, Jasmine said. I'm alleging she engaged in unofficial communication with international figures attempting to acquire interests in American infrastructure, and those interactions were intentionally concealed. Melania stood. You'll regret this. I already regret staying silent. That's why I'm here. For a moment, it seemed Melania might leave, but she didn't. She steadied herself, one hand gripping the back of the chair. Are you all right? Tristan asked, breaking the tension. Melania tried to respond. She opened her mouth but no words came. Then her balance shifted. Her left foot didn't land properly. She fell forward, her hand missing the chair. A producer off camera shouted, but too late. A stagehand rushed in, catching her arm enough to slow the impact. Her knees hit the floor. Her head lowered. Gasps filled the studio. Cut the feed. Cut the feed, someone yelled, but the camera continued broadcasting live. Terence rose, visibly unsettled. We need medical assistance now. Jasmine stayed still. Not shocked, but controlled. An EMT team hurried from behind the curtain. Melania was breathing, but all color had drained from her face. They lifted her onto a stretcher. Quiet chatter moved across the room, and someone began to cry. The studio no longer felt like a set. It felt like something heavier. She fainted, one paramedic said. Likely a vasovagal episode. We'll take her for evaluation. No one challenged it, but everyone understood the timing wasn't just about fatigue. It reflected the stress of exposure. An image beginning to unravel. As they took her off stage, a producer leaned toward Tristan and whispered something. We'll take a short break, he said to the camera. The screen went dark, but it made no difference. Audience phones had already captured everything. Clips spread instantly. Melania collapsed, was the top US trend within minutes, and global shortly after. Inside the studio, whispers spread, some anxious, some uncertain. Terence returned. Jasmine remained seated, the folder closed. "Congresswoman," he said cautiously, "we'll resume shortly. You may step out if you feel the situation has changed." Jasmine looked at him, composed. "I didn't want this to happen. But I wasn't the one withholding information." Outside, ambulance lights reflected against the glass. Inside, the room was still. Melania had already left the building. Her team issued a statement calling it an isolated health issue caused by travel demands. But that explanation no longer persuaded anyone. The story had moved on. Across the country, people rewatched the footage, jaw tight, analyzing every detail. It wasn't just the collapse itself. It was the circumstances. The expression on Melania'S face beforehand. Jasmine's tone. The documents in that folder. The truth was no longer a rumor. It was under direct scrutiny. That night alone, Jasmine's name was searched over 5 million times. One post stood out, a black background with white text. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. It reached 1 million likes by morning. Not everyone supported her. A former senior aide to the Trump family wrote, "This isn't courage. It's a personal attack disguised as justice." Others called it theater, political strategy, jealousy. But for every criticism, far more praised her composure and resolve. Jasmine stayed silent. She was waiting for the facts to spread further. Before she spoke publicly again, someone unexpected entered the conversation, surprising every newsroom in the country. By dawn, leaked emails appeared. One was sent from an encrypted account to a freelance journalist in Phoenix. Subject: Zurich, Marba. It included 2 PDFs containing email threads from 2021 through early 2023. The sender wasn't identified, but the details and timelines were significant. They referenced travel plans coordinated with a European security team. One line stood out: "Keep her name off the manifest this time. Same protocol as Marba." By 10 a.m., major outlets had the files. Legal teams mobilized immediately. Before noon, Melania'S office issued a statement. Mrs. Trump experienced a minor health event during an intense discussion. All accusations are false and will be addressed legally. But less than 20 minutes later, another piece surfaced. A grainy hotel elevator video from Zurich showed 2 individuals entering. One in a long white coat, the other wearing a baseball cap. The timestamp matched the travel log Jasmine referenced. The walk of the person in the coat was unmistakable. Melania. By evening, Melania canceled a planned trip to Palm Springs. By early afternoon, reports circulated from inside Mar-a-Lago advising her to remain out of sight and avoid interviews. The issue was no longer only physical. It was reputational. In her Dallas office, Jasmine reviewed each document again. Her chief of staff, Kian, entered with an update. One of her former aides just spoke off the record. She wants to come forward. She says she was in Marba with them and handled the room booking. Does she have proof? A receipt from the resort. Her signature is on it. Set up a private statement. No cameras. Audio only. Mark the time. The central issue wasn't personal relationships. It was the influence surrounding those meetings, the pathways of information, the recurring names. Americans weren't just watching a scandal. They were watching hidden networks surface. Cable news started using terms like international leverage and potential compromise. For the first time in years, Melania Trump was being discussed in terms of power, not fashion or marriage. Jasmine still had not done a single interview. Her silence had become deliberate. Late that day, she received a cease and desist letter from Melania'S attorneys accusing her of defamation and emotional harm. Jasmine skimmed it, then set it aside. "Do I need to worry?" she asked. Kian asked the question. She shook her head. "You don't sue people for lying. You sue them when they reveal too much of the truth." Before we get into the story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the stories others want hidden. Before Jasmine could decide her next step, the situation shifted again. A subpoena arrived, folded neatly inside a plain white envelope delivered to her district office in Dallas. Jasmine held it in her hand, looked at the return address and said, "There it is." Kian stared at her. "You're being asked to testify in D.C., Jazz. That's serious." "I know," she replied, placing the envelope in her bag. "That's why I'm not avoiding it." 2 days later, Jasmine sat before a subcommittee. Cameras lined the back wall. Some faces were familiar, Republicans who barely hid their dislike for her. Others maintained a careful neutrality. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, representing Texas's 30th District, the chairman began. We are here today not to revisit past headlines, but to understand the extent of your actions and their potential national impact. Do you understand? I do. A few members immediately moved into hostile questioning. One asked if she had collaborated with foreign intelligence. Another accused her of using personal matters for attention. She waited until they finished. I held on to this information for months, she said. Not because it wasn't important, but because I knew what would happen the moment I said it publicly. I'd be labeled emotional, vindictive, or seeking attention. So I waited until every claim was verified. The room went still. I didn't release this to harm anyone. I released it because public figures aren't just individuals. They carry influence. And if that influence is shaped behind closed doors, the public deserves to know. A few members nodded. Careful. Measured. The real shift came later that day, when Jasmine appeared in her first on-camera interview since the broadcast. It aired on a Sunday evening. The set was simple. 2 chairs, soft lighting. Across from her sat veteran journalist Evelyn Rowe. I have to ask, Evelyn said. Did you expect it to go that far? That she would collapse? No. I expected denial. I expected spin. I didn't expect her body to react in a way her words didn't. Did you feel any regret afterward? Yes, not about what I said, but about how much silence people tolerate just to avoid discomfort. Some say that moment ended political decorum. That you crossed a line. You mean the line between what we know and what we're willing to say out loud? That line was crossed long ago. I just pointed to the evidence. The clip went viral, not for theatrics, but for the steadiness of her voice. Backstage, Kian greeted her with a nod. You just changed the temperature in the room. They'll spin it, she said. Maybe, but they're not the only ones watching. What Jasmine didn't know was that in a townhouse in Alexandria, Virginia, a former Trump aide was watching the same interview. She hadn't spoken to the press yet. But as she listened to Jasmine, something shifted. That aide would soon confirm what Jasmine had only implied, and the consequences would be larger than anyone expected. Her name was Emma Cresswell, 39, a former executive liaison during the latter half of the Trump administration. She had once been photographed walking behind Melania at a gala in Brussels. Now she sat in a small office with a wired mic on her blazer, facing a protected camera for a whistleblower interview. I don't want money, she said. I want distance, and I want the truth recorded as it actually happened. She took a sip of water. She lied often, about where she was and who she met. It wasn't random. It was coordinated. I arranged her travel through shell companies. Why now? The interviewer asked. Because Jasmine Crockett reminded me what silence really costs. Everything shifted again. The interview was released in segments. The second dropped 48 hours later. Emma provided screenshots of internal messages, bookings under a pseudonym. One segment showed her being asked, was Melania ever involved with foreign investors seeking influence inside the U.S.? Her response was slow and precise. Yes. And not just socially. That sentence echoed louder than any document Jasmine had shared. It came from someone inside, someone who had benefited from the silence until she could no longer live with it. Melania'S legal team quickly released a statement calling the whistleblower a disgruntled former employee, but it fell flat. The public didn't buy it. That same week, another former staffer spoke anonymously to the Oregon Tribune, confirming a similar pattern during a 2022 trip to Vienna. The news cycle erupted again. Talk shows invited ethics experts. Financial analysts traced the shell companies mentioned in the documents. The pieces were forming a clear picture of influence brokering. Jasmine watched from the sidelines. She didn't post online. She let the facts speak. It wasn't about taking Melania down. It was about revealing a system that relied on people looking away. Still, some defended the former First Lady. She's being targeted because she's private and elegant, one host argued. But those claims faded as more evidence surfaced. Melania withdrew from her next 3 scheduled appearances. Reporters gathered outside her Florida residence, waiting for any sign of her. None appeared. Within conservative circles, tensions rose. Influencers who once praised her backed away, some calling her a distraction, others bluntly labeling her a liability. Meanwhile, Jasmine returned to her usual work, attending a school board meeting, visiting a community food bank. People who once only nodded politely now stopped to shake her hand. "You said what needed to be said," one woman told her. "And you didn't shout. That's why it mattered." Later that day, Kian handed her a printed email. Another whistleblower is stepping forward. This time from a security firm in Belgium. More documents. More proof. Jasmine looked at the folder and said quietly, "She built everything on image, and it cracked in a single night." As the public processed the unfolding events, a new development emerged. 3 weeks had passed since the collapse. 3 weeks of leaks, testimony, and repeated denials. While the media focused on headlines, something significant was happening behind the scenes. Jasmine Crockett was changing in the public eye. Not into a celebrity, but into a symbol of a different kind of leadership. She didn't hire PR. She didn't pursue book deals. Instead, she scheduled events at small town halls in places DC often ignores. Shreveport, Louisiana, Dalton, Georgia. At one stop, an elderly man stood during the Q&A. "I've voted Republican my whole life," he said. "But you looked someone in the eye and told the truth when no one else would. That took courage, and that matters." The applause was calm, sincere. Jasmine stepped off stage and turned to Kian. "It's not just about Melania anymore." "It never was," he replied. Critics still existed. Some cable shows called her disruptive. But their voices were weaker now, because people were watching her show up, not show off. At another stop in Topeka, Kansas, she met a group of single mothers who organized their own child care exchange. "How do we make sure people like you aren't drowned out?" they asked. And Jasmine answered honestly. "You have to keep talking about more than the scandal. Keep pushing for better." That's how a single moment turned into a broader movement. Her approval ratings began rising. First within her district, then in nearby ones. Younger voters started mentioning her as the person who refused to back down. One part of that first interview became especially memorable. It was the section where Jasmine stated, "You don't fix broken systems by yelling at them. You fix them by showing people how they work." That quote was later painted across the side of a building in Fresno, California. Meanwhile, the political landscape shifted around her. Some Democrats welcomed her as a new symbol of accountability, while others kept their distance. Yet whenever someone tried to redirect the discussion, it always returned to the same point. She stayed steady, she presented evidence, and she never lost composure. At a press conference in Philadelphia, a local reporter asked, "Do you see yourself as the leader of a new political movement?" She answered, "I don't know what you'd call it. I just know I'm tired of watching ordinary people get punished for saying what everyone else avoids saying. If that becomes a movement, then so be it." The next day, that quote appeared as a headline in more than 30 outlets. Back home in Dallas, she spent an afternoon at the community clinic where she had volunteered before entering politics. A nurse pulled her aside and said, "The waiting room is full of people who never watch C-SPAN, but they watched you. That means something." Melania disappeared from the public eye completely. No interviews and no appearances. A few months later, her attorneys quietly withdrew the lawsuit they had been preparing. An investigative report eventually confirmed the shell companies, private flights, and political ties Jasmine had mentioned. But Jasmine didn't pause to celebrate. She kept working and successfully passed 2 transparency bills related to government travel and lobbying practices. What's your view on this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, remember to subscribe to Celebrity Stories. We cover the issues others avoid, and we're only getting started. God bless you, and God bless America. No one anticipated Melania Trump losing consciousness on live television after Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett revealed the file she had tried so hard to keep hidden. Tension was high long before the broadcast began. The panel was scheduled for 6 p.m., and by 5:45 every seat was taken. At the semicircular table, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat on the right, calm and steady in her navy blazer. Opposite her was Melania Trump, dressed in a clean white dress, her expression controlled and unreadable. The host, Tristan Cliff, a seasoned broadcaster, checked his notes, cleared his throat, and signaled for silence. 20 seconds, a producer called out. What made this broadcast stand out was the anticipation that had been growing for weeks. Rumors, speculation, and hints that something major was about to be revealed. Crockett hadn't hinted at what she would discuss, but her silence made clear she was preparing for something serious. 10 seconds. Phones were raised across the audience, packed with journalists and political watchers. The atmosphere felt charged. Something was coming. The lights came up. Good evening and welcome to State Line Live, Tristan began. Tonight, we're joined by two prominent voices to discuss ethics and political accountability. He turned first to Melania. First Lady Melania Trump, thank you for being here. Melania nodded. Thank you for having me. Then he turned to Jasmine. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Thank you for joining us. Jasmine looked into the camera. It's necessary, she said. Let's talk about trust. Public trust in our leaders. What weakens it? What strengthens it? Melania spoke first, addressing media distortion and the importance of independent thinking. Her answer was polished and effective. Then Jasmine responded. People are exhausted by theatrics. They want facts, and they want proof. Melania blinked, the camera catching every movement. Tristan shifted uncomfortably. Congresswoman, are you suggesting someone at this table has crafted an image? I'm saying, Jasmine replied, that when someone holds enough power, image becomes currency, and some individuals spend it while hiding who they are. The audience went silent. Melania straightened. If that's aimed at me, I hope you can support your claim. Jasmine leaned back, still in control. Don't worry, I can. The camera widened. 3 people, 1 table, 2 realities colliding. Tristan attempted to calm the tone. Melania, do you think public figures should disclose relationships that might influence public perception? Melania narrowed her eyes. I believe everyone deserves privacy, especially when constantly judged. Jasmine tilted her head. Privacy matters, but not when it damages public trust. Melania faced her directly. You're implying something without saying it. Stop circling around it. I'm not circling, Jasmine said, voice steady. I'm giving you a chance to tell your own story before I have to. The audience reacted with a quiet gasp. Melania glanced toward an off-camera producer. Uncertainty crossed her face. Tristan stepped in. Congresswoman, can you clarify what issue you're raising? Jasmine leaned forward. People deserve transparency when someone involved in shaping policy hasn't been honest about their connections, both personal and political. Melania's lips tightened. You're walking a dangerous line. I'm walking the truth, Jasmine replied, and it's backed by timestamps. Tristan tried to move to another topic, but the silent tension between the two drew all attention. Melania placed her palms on the table. This was supposed to be a discussion of ideas. You're making it personal. Jasmine answered immediately. It is personal, not to me, but to the public that was misled. The room felt colder. Tristan looked to the teleprompter for guidance, but the situation had moved far beyond any script. Then Jasmine reached into her folder. Should we start with the March 17th trip to Zurich or the April 12th overnight in Marbella? Melania said nothing. The audience held its breath. Jasmine continued. Both appear on international customs logs. Both involve a private jet linked to a shadow company connected to someone close to you. Neither trip appears on any public schedule. Those are false claims, Melania said, though her voice shook. I have the documentation, Melania. The records you believed wouldn't surface. Melania looked away, not at Jasmine but toward the control room. A producer whispered something, but the broadcast stayed live. This is a smear attempt, Melania said. From someone seeking attention. Tristan tried to intervene, but Jasmine raised a hand. Let me finish. She pulled out a highlighted page. This is a copy of the Swiss customs log, March 17th. Gulfstream G650. Passenger initials match your legal name. Melania's jaw shifted. Initials don't prove identity. Which is why I have hotel footage, Jasmine replied. And a statement from the front desk describing the envelope, 3,000 euros in cash. Melania stared, unblinking. You're violating my rights. Public accountability doesn't end where private misconduct begins, Jasmine said. Tristan asked, Congresswoman, why reveal this now? Jasmine's voice softened. Because silence has a cost, especially for young women told to keep quiet when power behaves improperly. I held on to this for 6 months waiting for someone else to speak up. No one did. The room stayed frozen. Jasmine lifted another page. April 12th. Marbella. Same jet. Different companion. Same secrecy. Melania snapped. You're dragging a family through the mud for attention. If it's false, sue me, Jasmine replied. What concerns you isn't what I'm saying. It's that people will believe it. And viewers already were. Across the country, phones buzzed as people reacted in real time. Tristan asked quietly, Are you alleging the First Lady engaged in undisclosed affairs during her husband's presidency? No, Jasmine said. I'm alleging she had undisclosed contact with international figures attempting to gain influence in American infrastructure, and those meetings were intentionally concealed. Melania stood. You'll regret this. I already regret staying silent, Jasmine replied. Melania looked as if she might walk off, but instead she swayed. Her hand reached for the chair behind her, gripping the metal. The room froze. Melania? Tristan asked. She tried to respond, but no sound came. Then her foot slipped. She stumbled forward. A stagehand rushed in but caught her only partially as she collapsed. Her knees hit the floor. Gasps spread through the audience. Cut the feed, someone yelled, but the live stream continued. Tristan stood, shaken. We need medical assistance now. Jasmine remained still, not shocked, but holding back. EMTs hurried in. Melania was breathing, but her skin had gone pale. They placed her on a stretcher as quiet whispers spread. Someone in the audience began crying. The studio no longer felt like a show. It felt real. She fainted, one paramedic said. Possibly a vasovagal response. We'll take her for evaluation. No one argued, but everyone understood the moment was connected to the exposure.